This video will cover the basics of Beach Buggy Boogie. The left hand plays what's known as a barrel house left hand pattern. This is made up of 4 quarter notes per measure, and in each measure we play a root plus a fifth, and then a root plus the sixth. So we're in the key of C major, and the first chord we're playing is our number 1 chord, the primary chord C. With C and G, that's the root plus the 5th degree, and then the root plus the 6th degree. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. An alternate fingering for this could be to use your second finger on the G. Play like this with your second and fifth on the 5th, and your first and 5th on the 6th. This is if your hand is a little bit larger and it's comfortable for you. It fits in my hand just fine, but I do prefer using my thumb, so I'll continue like this. But you try it out and see which one fits you best. Alright, so we're rocking along playing on our C intervals like this until we get to measure 7, and then we switch it up to our 4 chord, which is one of our primary chords. We've got our F, and then we have an interval of a 5th, so the F and the C, and then the F and the D. So this shows up quite a few times throughout the piece. Our final primary chord that would happen in this piece is our 5 chord, where we begin on G and D. Now this doesn't happen in the barrel house pattern. However, this 5th does show up like in measure numbers 11, and then it shows up again in measure number 23. We're going to look at measure 23 and 24, where we start right here. Then we step down a half step. And then we step down a half step here, that's measure 24 right there. And then we step down a whole step. That's just about all the basics of what's going on in the left hand throughout the piece. In the right hand, we have a lot of triplets combined with 8th notes, so we have to be very careful with our counting. In measure number 3, when the right hand enters, our counting goes like this. Ready, play. Triplet 2 and 3 and 4. Here it is again. Ready? Play. Triplet 2 and 3 and 4. And that's one of the basic rhythmic patterns, so practice it a lot until it's comfortable right there. One of the things that is really important to watch out for is the pattern that happens in measure number 5. Everywhere in this piece where the last note of the right hand measure is tied over to the first beat of the next measure, like it is at measure 5 going to measure 6. What often happens is students end up moving that last beat of measure 5 into measure 6, or that 8th note winds up coming on beat 1 of the following measure. Now I don't want to play the wrong example, so I'm going to show you exactly what does need to happen. Hands together, measure 5 and 6. Here it goes. Ready? Play. Triplet 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. That interval, when put hands together, ends up on beat 1 instead of the and 4 so often, so I recommend you really practice that carefully and counting. Let me play it for you once again. Ready? Play. Triplet 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. If you heard how that went on the and of 4, you're going to be in good shape. If you're not so sure you've got it, practice it until you do. That same issue occurs in measure 9 going to measure 10. Look at the last note of measure 9. You have middle C tied to middle C in measure 10. That middle C ends up getting played on beat 1 of measure 10 an awful lot. We want to make sure he winds up in the right place like this. Ready, play. Triplet 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, practice that a lot. This same idea happens over in the B section. Take a look at measure number 17. Now we have a little different rhythmic pattern happening right here. I'm going to start on beat 2 of measure 17 and play just going into 18 so you can hear how this one works. So here we go. Ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2. I'm actually supposed to be 8 VA, aren't I? Let me play it again up here. Ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Did you hear how that came in on the and? This happens a few times throughout the piece, so just be aware whenever you see that pattern that as you go hands together, you're ending up on the and of 4. Another place that sometimes trips up students is where you have two triplets in a row, like measure 23 and measure 29. So we'll take a look at those two. Measure 23, here we go, ready, play. Triplet, triplet, 2 and 4, and triplet, triplet, 3 and 4. Did you hear how I miscounted? I called that beat 2, right? We'll try it again with the right numbers. Ready, count. Triplet, triplet, 3 and 4, and triplet, triplet, 3 and 4, and that same rhythmic patterns happens over at measure 35 and 36. At measure 29, you have intervals on the top playing. Sometimes on these intervals here, if you don't have a good rocking motion and you play really like with a stiff hand and most of your fingers are going down, those notes might not sound together like that. They might come out one ahead of the other. So make sure you have a good rocking motion going. Here's measure 29, just the right hand. Triplet, triplet, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and rest. So make sure when you're playing those intervals, you have a nice rocking motion going and your fingers are going right down together with good arm weight bringing them down. Well, that's all the individual little parts I'm going to play for you right now. But now I'm going to play the whole entire piece hands together at a slow tempo. You can see it's marked at a quarter note equals 144. I have my metronome set at a quarter note equals 100. So it's a lot slower than we want to end up eventually. I'm just going to play straight through with the metronome, and I recommend you practice with the metronome on this piece as well. Also, counting in those tricky measures we talked about, like measure 5 and 9 and other places, would be really, really helpful as well. So I'm going to count from time to time in the measures where the rhythm is a little bit more tricky. Here we go. Ready? Play. That about covers it. Happy practicing.